I would like to call to order the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District board meeting for Wednesday, August the 19th, 2020 at 7:07 p.m. Instructions for remote participation were attached to the agenda tonight. So if the public wants to listen in or address an item on the agenda, you'll have to follow the instructions. And if I can do it, I think you won't have any problem. But this is a telephonic video conference meeting pursuant to the Office of the Governor's temporary suspension of certain Open Meetings Act laws due to the novel coronavirus. We did have an amended agenda tonight that went out, and it is regard to number 17. I've been dealing with Mr. Ellis quite a lot. I hope you got at least the first email out this afternoon. I was working with Peggy. I did receive another one late this afternoon, and I think that'll help speed our decision along with what Mr. Ellis followed up with. With that being said, I would like to call the meeting to order again at 7:08 p.m. I would like to welcome everyone tonight. All board members are present, and I know we are continuing to be in some difficult times. I'm looking forward to the day where we can meet together as a board. We have to use our technology to deal with this COVID-19 virus, but I do miss the personal contact with the board. Item number 3, and I'm going to really stress this tonight because of the length of our meeting and the potential length of some future meetings. Public comments are an opportunity for the residents of Bastrop or Lee County to address the board of items that are of concern that you would like the board to think about and bring it to our attention. We cannot engage in a conversation because it's not a listed item. Secondly, we have several.
I'm here now. Let me in to tell Natasha that I'm here.
Okay, I've got him in there now.
Okay. But we do have items.
Okay.
If you want to.
Well, she didn't say my name. That was the reason I was asking. So,
can we at least, are we working? These interruptions are.
All right, I'm gonna mute everybody, but you'll have to unmute yourself before you want to speak.
The telephone conference, but still listen. Okay.
Again, I want the board to have every opportunity to address items that are on the agenda tonight. But if you get two people talking at the same time, it's just going to be garbled coming across over. So let's try to extend courtesy to our fellow board members if they're talking and wait until they get done. Again, back to item number 3, public comments. This is to address any item that is not on the agenda this evening, but something that a concerned citizen may have about the water district or just some information about the water district, and you want to bring it to our attention. Since we don't know what you're going to talk about, we can't list the item, so there can be no action taken other than the board will take your comments under advisement. Starting with number 4, we have several items that I'm anticipating public comment. Jim and I met yesterday, and it looks like we're going to be doing telephonic video conferences for the near future. Once the agenda comes out, if you see an item on the agenda that you would like to address the board, if you would just send an email over to the Groundwater District, they will get them to me, and it'll help move the meeting along if I know that you want to speak. And I did receive one yesterday, and so we want to encourage you to do that. Okay, item number 3, public comments. I learned my lesson from last week's meeting. Is there anyone that wants to come on and address the board?
Yes, this is Andy Weir.
Okay, now, Mr. Weir, you have signed up to speak on item number 8, and I have you listed to speak on number 8. Is there something else you want to talk about?
I had written to say I wanted to do public comment and then the separate address specifically agenda 8.
Okay, well, you're on the list for 8, and you got the public comment. So you're ready to go.
Okay.
3 minutes on public comment.
Thank you. My name is Andy Weir. I'm a citizen of Bastrop County and a resident of Circle D subdivision. Thank you for trying a different online meeting tool tonight. The previous connections made it very difficult for me to connect. I was dropped from the meeting several times, and in one meeting I was disconnected just as I tried to offer public comment. So I found it very frustrating. I attribute that partly to the teleconference system that you used before, but also to my poor telephone and internet service that I have out here in rural Bastrop. Although I only live 10 miles outside of town, I can only get 1 bar on my cell phone, no matter which carrier I use. And I have a DSL internet service that is 1 megabit per second download and only 0.3 megabits upload. So in comparison, when you're in the city with your cell phone, you can get 40 megabits download and 20 megabits upload. So you can get 20 times what I can do out here. I'm sharing this with you because the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District is going to have more remote meetings, at least for a while, probably through December. And in that time period, you're going to consider some really important materials like regional planning, the DFCs or desired future conditions, your response to Representative Larson on the interim charges regarding water planning, and looking at the agenda, maybe a special meeting on upcoming permits. So the quality of phone and internet service is really poor in rural parts of Bastrop and Lee counties. Your upcoming meetings are incredibly important to all the people in Lee and Bastrop counties. So I urge you to consider accepting public comments in written form for future meetings that can be delivered to you by postal service or email. A typical 3-minute comment would come out to 2 pages, double-spaced, of typed material. And that could be an easy standard that you could accept. I think this will ensure citizens in Lee and Bastrop County can fully participate in your meetings and would not be disenfranchised because of unequal access to technology. Thank you.
As I said, I cannot give you a specific response tonight, but I will say that Jim and I in our weekly meeting recognize that there are areas of both Bastrop and Lee County that may not have the standard requirements for internet that we have here inside the city of Bastrop. We're floating a couple of ideas around so it allows more transparency and will encourage people, I think, to get involved. And if you want to give me a call, I'll go over it in more detail. But Jim and I are concerned about that, especially with the permit hearing ahead of us. And we want to create a format that everyone's involved. So we are working on that. Hopefully we can get it accomplished in time. If you want to give me a call, feel free to do so. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Weir? I lost.
Not for open public comment. Do I address
Okay.
agenda item 8 now or at the time it comes up?
At the time it comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input. Okay. Item number 4. Got so many papers here tonight to keep me straight. Okay. Item number 4 is review and approval of the minutes of the July 15th, 2020 regular board meetings. If I hear no for approval, I will assume that all the board is in favor of approving the minutes. So are there any no's to the approval of the minutes? Then the minutes are approved. Okay. Consideration and possible action to add Secretary Treasurer Mike Semang to the bank signatory. Again, if no one is objecting to this item, I'm going to ask that. And if you say no, please state your name, and then we'll go into a more formal motion in a second. Is there anyone that does not want Mr. Semang on that? Please say no now. Hearing no no's, Mr. Semang will be, has been approved to be a signator on our banks. Appreciate you stepping in, Mike, and helping us on that. Okay. Consideration a consideration of and possible action regarding the application of Thomas Turfgrass to amend the operating permit for District Well number 58-55-2-0034, located in the Simsboro Aquifer in Bastrop. Jim, would you want to just give us a staff report? I saw the permit application in the packet, but could you give us a brief overview of what's being requested of the board?
Mr. President, members of the board, what you have in front of you is a request from Thomas Turfgrass. As you know, they were permitted for a well to supply irrigation water for their operation, I believe 2 years ago now. The well that they drilled ended up being more productive than they expected in terms of produce a higher instantaneous rate than what they had predicted when they applied. What they're asking for tonight from you is for permission to increase that instantaneous production rate from 2,000 acre-feet per minute, or I'm sorry, 2,000 gallons per minute to 2,450 gallons per minute. Essentially, this will just allow them to run their pumps a little harder and complete their irrigation operations in less time, or to irrigate more area in the same amount of time that they currently have to run their pumps. There's no change in actual annual production, and this request came in under the as President Talbot said, under Rule 7.2E. which allows you to consider changes in production rates that don't impact spacing requirements for a well. This well was originally permitted at the top tier of spacing, so increasing the production doesn't have an impact on the spacing requirements for this well. At this point in time, as staff, I don't have a reason why. I don't have a concern about granting this application. If it allows them to operate their systems more efficiently and it doesn't have an impact on spacing, then I'd recommend that we move forward with it.
Basically, Jim, saying it in a layman's words, when the pumps turn on, they're going to draw the water faster to get it out into the system, but they're going to stay within the parameters of the total acre feet. I take it by your recommendation that you feel that it's a small increase, I think of 250 gallons per minute, will have no impact on the aquifer.
At the end of the day, the instantaneous rate has more of an impact on the immediate drawdown when the well is running.
Okay.
And so, but in terms of long-term impacts, that's tied entirely to the annual production.
Okay.
And we're not changing that annual production.
Good. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Does any of the other board members have a question for Mr. Totten on this item?
This is Phil Cook. I have a question. Jim, do you foresee any effect on surrounding domestic and agricultural wells? Would it affect them in any way?
The increase will, like I say, it'll increase the instantaneous cone of depression, but that cone of depression more or less disappears as soon as the pump turns off. So the cone of depression will be larger when the pump is running, but not significantly larger than what it currently is. So
yeah, I understand that. Would there be any immediate effect, over maybe just a few minutes actually on surrounding domestic, or would they see a more of a drawdown in their wells or anything like that that would affect their use of the water even temporarily?
Based on the current spacing rules, the well was permitted. It had to be at least 5,000 feet from any adjacent wells. So the majority of the drawdown cone is going to be contained within that 5,000 feet. There may be fluctuations that occur outside of that, but it's going to be on without running models, I couldn't give you an exact number, but I would suspect it'd be on the orders of a foot or two fluctuation rather than something major.
Phil,
So
just to add a editorial to that, my dad was a plumbing contractor, and I lived in upstate New York, and we put a lot of wells in for dairy farmers up there. And occasionally we had to go back and increase the amount. If it was pumping 200 gallons a minute, sometimes we had to adjust it to say 275 to get enough water in to fill the troughs and get the cows ready for milking. If this was an increase of 1,000 gallons per minute, I might be a little concerned on the aquifer, but 250 gallon increase, from a layman's perspective, again, doesn't raise a red flag. Again, if it was 1,000 gallons a minute, that might be something different.
So I can surmise from this that because the well is isolated from surrounding domestic wells, that if it had any effect, it would be minute and negligible and not affect the use of the other wells.
When we're speaking of the instantaneous rate, yes, sir. Now, like with any production over the long term, that's a different story, and that's taken into account during the time the well is permitted. But
I understand that.
Yeah, but the change of the instantaneous rate.
I just want to be assured that this even small increase in instantaneous pumping won't affect surrounding wells.
to the best of my knowledge, that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? On this one, we will do a regular motion vote because of the item consideration. So I will entertain a motion to consider possible action regarding the application of Thomas Turfcraft to amend the operating permit for District Well number 58-55-2-0034 located in the Simsboro Aquifer in Bastrop County under Rule 7.2E to increase the instantaneous rate of withdrawal from 2,000 gallons per minute to 2,400 gallons per minute with no increase in the annual production. If you're going to make the motion, please state your name. And is there a motion?
David Fleming, move for approval.
Okay, David Fleming said move. Okay. Is there a second?
Michael Semang, second.
Mike Semaine, seconds. Okay. Mr. Cook.
Yes,
Okay. Carl.
We don't have Carl.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is Kay Rogers on with us tonight?
I am,
Okay, Kay, your vote?
to approve.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Billy Sherrill. Billy? Okay. Okay, Mr. Cook? Mr. Herbert Cook? I see your name flashing up, so are you there?
Maybe he needs to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Cook. And thanks, Mike. Mr. Larry Shate, Larry? You
Need
may
to
have,
unmute.
okay, yeah. You may have to unmute.
Larry, in the bottom left corner, there's the microphone. Push that to unmute. Click that to unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay. And Miss Cheryl Smith. Cheryl?
Yes, vote to approve.
Okay. This item has been approved, and our general manager will prepare the necessary paperwork to reflect the action that the board has taken under item number 6.
Mike, this is Natasha. I just want to note that the minutes need to reflect that Director Steinbach and Cheryl were not in attendance on this vote.
Cheryl was. She came in at the last.
Billy Cheryl.
Billy Sherrill.
Oh, Billy Cheryl. Okay, yeah, I got him marked down as not being here.
Okay.
That does, because the first meeting we had, it got a little confusing because I marked down some people weren't here, and then the minute said they did. So I agree. Item number 7 is not, there's going to be no action. It's a presentation on joint groundwater planning and groundwater management area 12, GMA 12, and desired future conditions. The board's hydrologist, Mr. Andrew Donnelly, will make the presentation to the directors. And in your packet, I think you have a copy of the slides that he's going to present to you tonight. Andy, you're up.
All right, let me share my screen here. Share. Okay, does everyone can see my screen?
Yep.
All right.
I can.
This is kind of a rehash with a couple of additions to what we talked about in February. Originally, we had said in February that we were going to come back in the March meeting, which was only 3 weeks later, to kind of get some feedback from the board on what we had discussed. Of course, between the February and March meetings, things went a little sideways. So here we are 6 months later. I will expand a little more than I had planned on because it's been 6 months rather than 3 weeks on what we discussed, just to kind of get a discussion going here.
Okay.
What we covered in February, we talked about the joint groundwater planning process in GMA 12. We did a review of the MAGs, the DFCs, and the GAMs. We did a discussion of the updated GAM and the impacts that that had on the predictions. We discussed the status and the results of the GMA 12 modeling for the current round of joint groundwater planning, especially the impact of that updated GAM. And then we talked about the potential use of DFC zones and their impact. So as a reminder, joint groundwater planning is similar to regional water planning, where the state has been divided up into 16 different GMAs, groundwater management areas. We are a member of GMA 12, along with Fayette County, Brazos Valley, Post Oak, Savannah, and Mid-East Texas groundwater conservation districts. We are currently in the 3rd round of joint groundwater planning, the first one being completed in 2011, the second one in 2016. The third one, this one, the proposed DFCs are due by May 1st of next year. And in February, I wrote that's less time than it seems, and now it's a lot less time than it seems. So we're really having to get moving.
I want to ask a stupid question, Andy.
Yes, sir.
We completed them in 2011, 5 years, well, I guess it is 5 years, so I've answered my question.
Yeah, they're required to be they're required to be revisited at least every 5 years.
Yeah, I went through that. I got on the Water Development Board website and went through this, so I'd be a little bit better educated tonight.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. So the current desired future conditions and modeled available groundwaters numbers are here for our district. The Sparta, Queen City, Carrizo, Calvert Bluff, Simsboro, and Hooper are the 6 aquifers we'll be talking about, and that's the range of DFCs that are currently on the books. And the resulting MAGs for those are here, Sparta being about 2,400, Queen City about 1,300. The Carrizo ramps up from about 7,600 to 12,000, Calvert Bluff from 2,000 to 4,000 or so. The Simsboro runs between 30 and 35,000, and the Hooper 700 to 1,250.
Another stupid question, Andy. Yes, I would think over time we would see more increased pumpage, but the numbers seem to go up rather than down.
This is just the way that we set the model run up the last time. Now these numbers for the Simsboro were a little bit different because we had we were dealing with some pushback from the Water Development Board on our DFCs, and we had to come in and adjust the pumpage for the Simsboro at the end of the run. And actually, I had to cut the Hooper numbers in half to make the DFCs that we approved match, and so that's why these numbers go down. You'll see in the runs that we're currently doing, we don't have static mags across the time. We've ramped them all up so that they somewhat reflect what we feel will be happening in terms of an increase in demands. And so we'll get to that in just a second.
Thank you, Andy.
Andy, this is Phil Cook. This is the old mag.
This is the old mag. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So the current GMA 12 modeling, we are working with the newly updated GAM. Newly, it's been a couple of years. The reminder that the updated GAM produces some significantly different results than the previous GAM. We are currently working pumpage file, our predicted pumpage file baseline simulation is called S7. The pumpage that is included was based on anticipated growth and existing permits. In yellow here, since February, we have had a proposed revision to the new GAM. Apparently, there were a lot of aquifer tests that were part of the Vista Ridge project that were not available when they developed this GAM. Those aquifer tests have helped refine the aquifer properties in a 15 to 20 mile kind of strip in the Simsboro that includes all of the area through Vista Ridge and all the way over to kind of mid-Lee County. So they've refined the, or they're proposing to refine the aquifer properties there. Preliminary simulations indicate that this has a positive effect, a less drawdown predicted for the Simsboro aquifer in Lost Pines. So here's the what we were talking about, Mike. The proposed the S7 pumpage we're dealing with right now in the existing mags. And as you'll see, the Sparta, instead of remaining steady around 2,400, it ramps up from about 1,000 now up to about 2,700. So by the end of the simulation, it's pretty similar, but it's showing that ramp up. The same with the Queen City. Instead of being 1,315 across the way, it goes from 1,100 to about 1,700 or 1,800. The Carrizo starts off a little lower, but ends up a little higher. Again, we sat down and kind of looked at who's got wells in the Carrizo, what their demand projections are, and this is what we came up with. I think this is a little more realistic. Calvert Bluff ramps up to about 5,500. We'll talk about the Simsboro last. The Hooper looks like it's about doubled, but if you remembered, I had to come in for the last run and basically cut this existing mag in half to satisfy the feasibility factor with the board. So this isn't actually a whole lot different. It ramps up from about 1,700 to 3,200. Now the Simsboro will raise some eyebrows, but if you remember the assumptions that we went into where we had to look at all the existing permits. So we had a couple of permits that were not on the books when we did the last round of planning, which have since been approved. And as part of the assumptions, we assumed that after a couple of years of putting in the necessary infrastructure, that those permits will be fully exercised. So that's why you see such a big bump from 2020 to 2030. And then the Simsboro.
Andy, what were those permits?
That would be the 4-star and the NDOP, which is now Recharge, those two permits. So then after that bump, you'll see that the Simsboro ramps up. So that's a substantial change, but that's why that's there. Now, a summary of the current DFCs and the drawdowns from the S7 model run. I've divided the model run, the S7 model run up into two different time periods. 1999, the end of 1999 to 2070, and then 2010 to 2070. And the reason for that is that in the old model, the calibration ended at the end of 1999. And therefore, all of the way that the DFCs were constructed or phrased was drawdown from 1999 to 2070. So that's what these represent here. The new model, the end of the calibration is at the end of 2010. And so we will probably be looking at DFCs that will be phrased or constructed as drawdown from the end of 2010 to 2070. So in this slide, I'm just showing kind of the impact of those 10 years. And I included the 1999 to 2070 to kind of be an apples to apples for what we have for the DFC. So as you can see, the drawdown in these upper aquifers are significantly higher than the existing DFCs. In the Wilcox layers, they're actually also a bit higher, but remember that this 346 is reflective of that pumpage that I showed you in the last slide, where we had a lot more Simsboro pumpage that went on the books in the 2020 to 2030 decade. So a lot of that is reflected in this number. And if you start the DFCs in 2010, you'll see a slight decrease, just a few feet, a few percent. It's not a big impact. Now, a refresher on the impact of the updated GAM. Again, S7 was run with the new GAM. We did try to adjust those S7 pumpages to meet the existing DFCs with the new model. We just took the pumpages and just played with them district by district and aquifer by aquifer. So I could zero out the pumpage in the Calvert Bluff in Lost Pines, for example, or I could multiply the pumpage in the Hooper by 10 in Mid-East Texas. So we just basically played around with a series of model runs to try and see how close we could get to the DFCs that are on the books across GMA 12. The result of that was that the upper aquifers, the Sparta, the Queen City, and the Carrizo, we were unable to meet the DFCs across the GMA no matter what we did to the pumpage. We could not reduce the pumpage enough to meet the existing DFCs. In the deeper aquifers, basically the 3 Wilcox aquifers, we were able to meet the DFCs. However, we were to meet those, we had to put in higher pumpage. So the districts in GMA 12 are currently assessing their thoughts on the impact of the new model and how they will be approaching establishing DFCs. When we went over
Andy,
yes.
can you explain the 4th one to me?
Yes.
Well, what's going to happen, what happens is we can meet, remember that if you go back to this one here, our existing DFC, for example, in the Simsboro is 240 240 feet of drawdown between 1999 and 2070.
Correct.
That is reflective of the pumpage, the mags, that are in that model run, which were between 30 and 35,000 acre feet per year.
Okay.
This number, the 346 that's coming out of F7, that is actually reflective of ramped up pumpage that ends up at 125,000 acre feet per year in 2070. So
okay.
This number is bigger, but remember the pumpage is significantly bigger. So when we backed this pumpage down so that this number here matched 240, and actually I was able to get the Calvert Bluff down to around 100 and the Hooper down to around 165. When I backed these pumpages down to get these 3 numbers to match these 3 numbers, the pumpage that I put in there was higher than the pumpage in the old
Got it.
mag run.
Okay, got it.
Andy, just a couple of other quick questions.
Sure.
On bullet number 3,
Mm-hmm.
the Carrizo, at least it's my understanding, the Carrizo is one of the largest aquifers in our region.
That is correct. It is one of the 2. I always look at the Simsboro and the Carrizo as kind of being the big producers. We were unable. We couldn't, even when I zeroed the pumpage out in the Carrizo, I could not get that number down to that number.
Is that because of the new model that you were provided
Correct.
to cause this significant change?
Correct. In fact, in that model run, I zeroed out the pumpage in the Sparta, the Queen City, and the Carrizo. I could not get those down, and I had to zero out the pumpage in a lot of other areas, and we just couldn't get these numbers down to within the error margins of, what was it, plus or minus 10% of these, that we just couldn't, we couldn't do it.
Okay. I'm sure you're going to answer this question as we get into it a little bit more, but the implication of all this seems to be, at least initial reaction, rather serious.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would call it serious. There will need to be modifications made. I mean, we're going to have to for these upper aquifers because the numbers that are on the books right now are not going to be deemed physically possible by the Water Development Board. That just won't happen.
Andy, what would those modifications look like, especially in relation to the Lost Pines district?
We're going to have to see bigger numbers for the DFCs for these upper aquifers. I mean, admittedly, these numbers for the Sparta and the Queen City are awfully small. When you actually look at 5 feet over 70 years, it's like an inch or two a year. These numbers are still pretty small for a 60-year drawdown. But these would be similar to what we would probably be looking at for modifications.
Throughout GMA 12.
Yeah, every one of the districts is going to have to be looking at revising, especially these 3 upper aquifers. That's just across the board. And actually, I'll get to it here in a second. I think Director Cook, you were the one who asked. When we're at the GMA 12 meeting, people want to know. Have been asking what's Lost Pines thinking about the GMA process, and I think your question in February meeting was, well, what are all the other districts thinking? And so here's kind of a summary of what the other districts are thinking with regard to that S7 run, or with regard to planning in general, but it all relates back to the S7 run. The Fayette County District is okay with the S7 pumpage and results. Actually, the drawdowns for Fayette are similar to the existing DFCs. They're not a whole lot different, and they really don't want a reduction in the mags. But Fayette's kind of in the down dip area. They don't have any DFCs for any of the Wilcox layers because they're so deep that they've been deemed non-relevant. Mid-East Texas is okay with the S7 pumpage and the results. Brazos Valley is okay with the S7 pumpage and results. They had anticipated that there would be higher drawdowns in many aquifers, and they don't have an issue with that. Post Oak Savannah, they've been moving around a little bit, but I think where they're at now is they're okay with S7 pumpage, or S7, but they're going to have some modifications. They're probably going to come in and adjust the pumpage to tweak some of their DFCs. So that's kind of where the other 4 districts within GMA 12 are at this point. So summary of the current modeling, as we've said, the pumpage cannot be reduced enough to meet the current DFCs in those 3 upper aquifers. The Wilcox aquifers will have more pumpage to meet the DFCs. Initial results are somewhere in the 85,000 acre feet per year in the Simsboro to meet the DFC of 240 feet. Importantly, what the other districts do has a significant impact on the Lost Pines. It comes back to the whole reason for having joint planning is what you do will impact your neighbors. So we kind of have to tackle this and look at this together.
Andy?
Yes, sir.
Like the Carrizo, they cross the boundaries of just more than the GMA 12.
That is correct. The Carrizo is the like the Simsboro down in GMA 13. That is the big target aquifer. You've got a lot of projects that have been developed in Gonzales County. So yeah, what goes on down there does impact up here. Most of those projects in Gonzales counties are on the far side of the district from GMA 12, but yeah, we might feel some impact there. But that is correct. The Carrizo is a big aquifer across a lot of the state.
Right, and what they put in could also cause you to make some revisions into our model, wouldn't it?
I don't remember. We did include pumpage in the portion of the GMA 12 model that is included in GMA 13. That area of the model that area is included in our model. A lot of Gonzales County is included, if not all of it. I don't remember off the top of my head. And we did go in and put pumpage in into that, and,
Okay.
and I left it the same. So there would, it's not like that the portion of the model that's outside of GMA 12 has no pumpage. That's not the way it works. We did go in and put in pumpage in those areas outside of our GMA.
Okay, thank you.
Andy, is any, or what consideration was given to these future drawdowns on, how would that affect the groundwater surface water interaction in the Colorado River, especially as it pertains to our district?
Well, I mean, as with the most of the GAMs, we do have boundary condition packages included in the model that represent the rivers, the major rivers in the area. And those rivers do contribute to and receive water from the aquifers beneath them. The new model has a couple of layers that are between these deep regional aquifers and the river itself, which reflects reality a little more. So you have an alluvium layer, which is layer 1, which is the alluvium aquifer immediately around the rivers. And then there is a layer 2 across the entire model, which is, I think, referred to as the shallow aquifer zone. It's basically up to a 75-foot thick layer across the entire model, which kind of represents those shallow, short groundwater flow systems that do exist. So this helps more realistically buffer what's going on in the deep regional aquifers, what is going on in the rivers, but that connection is still there. So you still have connection of the deep regional aquifer up through the shallow aquifer to the alluvium and then to the river. So that is still included in the model.
And what does the model conclude will be the effects? Are we going to see a reversal of the groundwater surface water interactions? Is aquifer water going to be coming into the Colorado River, on a gross basis? Or,
I don't know that at this point.
Is it being considered by GMA 12 as seriously considered as a component of the
at this point we haven't gotten to that factor discussion yet. We're basically working our way through the factors, and we're kind of working our way with the model runs and trying to hone our way in. I can't speak for the GMA as to where they're going to go.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. The last thing I'll touch upon are the DFC zones. We've talked about this a few times. The DFCs are currently structured as district-wide averages, even though pumpage does not occur in each aquifer across the entire district. Monitoring drawdowns across the entire district is impossible due to the availability of wells or lack thereof. If there's no pumpage across the district in these aquifers, there aren't going to be any wells there. There's no way that we can look at the water levels in those areas. Revised approach is going to shrink the DFC monitoring zones to the aquifer outcrop and shallower down dip where most of the wells are present. Kind of thrown these into one big slide here. We'll start up here in the upper left. This is the Hooper. The zone is now the outcrop, which is the solid color area here. And in the Hooper, it's not very transmissive, so most of your wells that are in the Hooper are just a few miles down dip. So we would propose restricting that there. Now in the Simsboro, it's a much more transmissive aquifer, and you've got wells that go much farther down dip. Similar thing with the Carrizo. Calvert Bluff is kind of halfway in between. It's not nearly as far down dip as the Simsboro. The Sparta and the Queen City are those shallower, not quite dipping so much aquifers, so you'll get some pretty big areas here. For these ones, you'll notice there's not a whole lot of the district that's been trimmed off. So the impact of a DFC monitoring zone on the Sparta here is not going to be as significant as, for example, the impact on the Hooper, because we're cutting out what 80% of the. Now there was and here's the impact of these DFC zones. Keep in mind, this is not, the zone is simply, instead of averaging the drawdowns across the entire district, we're just averaging the drawdowns in this area. Drawdowns haven't actually changed. The model run is the same. It's just we're taking a different subset of those numbers and calculating it. So the drawdowns here, as you remember, the Sparta and the Queen City, we didn't trim a whole lot off there, so you really don't see a lot of impact. You'll start to see impact in the Carrizo Wilcox, and if you remember the Hooper, we trimmed off about 80% of the area, but that has a substantial impact on the drawdowns. There was a little bit of confusion last time as to why the Hooper, for example, would decrease, the drawdown would decrease that much if the area we have retained in our DFC zone is the area where all the pumpage in the Hooper occurs. And, you know, that would be the area with the greatest drawdown. And so I've added a slide to address that. This touches on a lot of subjects. Now the Hooper outcrop is up here, and this is indeed where the Hooper pumpage is. But in these aquifer systems, they do communicate. And so the drawdowns in the Hooper are reflecting what's going on in the overlying Simsboro. So that's having a much greater impact on the Hooper than the very small amount of pumpage that's occurring up here in the outcrop and in the shallow down dip outcrop. So when you cut out all of this area here out of that calculation, you are left with a much smaller drawdown for the Hooper.
Andy, could we go back to the previous slide, the impact
here?
DFCs?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to understand the elements that went into calculating these numbers, but you took into account current wells currently operating, and I assume some type of projection of what we might see over this 50-year planning period.
Correct. Those are from the regional water planning projections. We looked at Lee County and Bastrop County have pretty vastly different projected demand changes over the 50-year planning horizon. So I looked at one versus the other. So
let's just look at the Carrizo. The current drawdown is going to be, I'm trying to understand the difference. The county average is going to be 140 drawdown, where the DFC zone is going to be 95.
Right. In other words, if I took, now it's the same set of numbers. If I take the same set of numbers for the Carrizo in this area here, the entire district where the Carrizo is present, that drawdown is 140 feet. If I take it just in this area, which is realistically, this is where the Carrizo wells are, this is the area that we're going to be able to monitor, that drawdown is 95 feet. So that's the only difference. It's the same set of numbers. We're just averaging a different subset. Well, this is the entire district, and this is a subset of that.
So when we get a permit application for a large amount of water, you run it through these models to see if it stays within the parameters that were our DFCs.
Well, I mean, what I'll do is I will run it in the model. Typically, what we'll do is we'll take the baseline run for the GMA as in the time period since the last set of DFCs were approved. I took that GMA run, the final mag run, and as we added and approved permits, I added those to it. And so our baseline run was evolved. So I took the GMA run, and then when we approved the NDOT permit, for example, I added those, and those now became part of our baseline run because NDOT and wells are theirs and they've been permitted. So I will look at the calculations of the impact of a proposed permit by itself, where I can kind of evaluate the drawdown over 50 years of a proposed well or project. And then I would calculate the projected drawdown for the entire district to compare to the DFCs, which are currently for the entire district. I would summarize those in a table, and that would be presented in the analysis to the board.
Okay. Just a thought as you explained that to me. I recognize how you've got the models together. It's based upon a lot of different data. On a large permit application that comes before the board, it would seem to me that we might want to start giving more consideration to staging how much to draw, rather than giving the full amount. Let's see what, X does. And if it stays within the parameters for a period of time, we move up to Y. To me, that at least gives us the tools with what you've done to monitor how the aquifers are doing based upon that approach. Is that totally off the wall?
No, I mean, the two large permits that were approved between the last round of joint groundwater planning and this round of joint groundwater planning,
yes,
have a staged, phased in.
And I'm aware of that. Yes.
Yeah. So that's not unreasonable. I mean, I think I can't disagree with that approach.
Okay, because again, it's our best guess, and sometimes our best guess is right, and sometimes we're saying, how did I come up with this? And so I'm just trying to educate myself.
Yeah, and I mean, these are models. It's models predicting what's going to happen 50 years in the future. So yeah, there's some uncertainty associated with that for sure.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
All right. So as we get back to this, basically to summarize overall, reminder that DFCs are going to need to be changed in those upper aquifers because we're just not going to get it there, and the Water Development Board is going to say this isn't feasible. We're going to have to get the DFC. The DFCs can be matched in the deeper aquifers, but the pumpage is going to be higher. Kind of wanted to get some feedback just to see what the district thinks about that S7 model run and the DFC zones. I mean, we've really kind of already talked about the DFC zones. We've got a tentative buy-off, but we wanted to kind of make sure everyone was good with that. And a reminder on the timeline for joint groundwater planning. This is what I gave in February. In the March board meeting, 3 weeks later, we're going to get feedback on the material. March to July, model runs, talking about factors. The fall, finalizing. The winter, Lost Pines board would be discussing and approving, and then in spring, GMA 12 is going to adopt them. Slightly modified. This August board meeting, we're now kind of getting feedback on the material presented 6 months ago. The summer, we did have our first GMA meeting at the end of July. It was virtual. We did pick up and start talking about those factors. We didn't talk about additional model runs, although I think tentatively we have a meeting scheduled for the 10th of September. We will probably be talking about model runs then. Now the fall, the winter, we're going to have to be finalizing proposed DFCs. Winter to the spring, the board is going to need to meet and formally approve them. And before May 1st, GMA 12 is going to have to adopt proposed DFCs. And that's where we stand, and I will take any questions.
board, if you would like to ask questions, just state your name, and whoever comes up first, I can monitor it on the screen because you light up on this end. So anybody'd like to address any questions to Andy?
And
Larry?
Mike, this is Natasha. I just want to remind the directors that are on their phones that they can press *6 to unmute themselves.
Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Any questions from the board members?
It's okay. I mean, we kind of had lots of questions during the talk, so I'm not surprised there aren't any at the end.
Okay, I don't want to deny anybody an opportunity here, but if there's no questions,
Mike, you might ask if there are public comments on it also.
sure. I think this is a presentation not only to the board, but to our citizens in Bastrop and Lee County. And if there's a way to get this presentation on our website for the people to look at and submit any comments, that would be very helpful, I think.
President Talbot, the presentation was included as part of the board packet that's posted on the district website along with the agenda.
Okay, but somebody might have a hard time finding it grouped in a packet. But if we just make an annotation, I'm just wanting to make sure the public has an opportunity to see this. That's all I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay, we can break it out and post it separately under the district documents.
Because it's just been my experience, when you load a packet into the onto your website and then tell people go to the August meeting or the July meeting, they get a little confused of what to look for. And so for us, it's old hat, but if you can, that'd be great, Jan. Anything else?
But
Andy,
Mike, I take it there's nobody on the Mike, I take it there's nobody on the phone presently who would like to make an audio comment during this time. I know we had Andy Weir on item 8. That's why I was wondering if
that's right.
is on this item
Yes.
also.
Thank you very much for reminding me, Phil. Mr. Weir, you wanted to comment on item number 8?
No, he was on. Yeah, but we were on. I'm sorry.
Mike, are you ready to move off of item 7, Andy's presentation?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. He wanted to talk on item 8. I got too many things going on.
But I thought maybe somebody would want to talk on item 7. And just wanted to make sure they had the opportunity if they're there.
Yes, I appreciate that, Phil. But apparently no one has responded to that. So we'll move on to item number 8. And item number 8 is consideration and possible action on the creation of a committee to evaluate the creation of an online message board for the use by the district board of directors and authorization. Board member Smith, after our last meeting, took it upon herself to dive in and find out more information regarding the message board. And she was coming up with some very interesting materials. I felt like we should appoint a committee and let Miss Smith chair the committee because of the work that she's done. And I believe with some assistance from staff or Natasha, I think Ms. Smith is headed down the road for answering the questions that were raised at the last meeting. I do want to bring up under our governance section of our management plan, it says the president may establish committees for the formulation of policy recommendations to the board and may appoint the chair and members of the committees, which shall include members of the board and or non-members. Committee members serve at the pleasure of the president. I'm not one to be a dictator here, but again, in recognition of the hard work that Ms. Smith has done, I just would like to keep it structured within a framework of it work. We know we're keeping it within the framework of the district, and Ms. Smith and I had a long discussion on this. But because of the importance of this issue, I just felt that it needed to come back to the board, and at a minimum, I would just like your consent to move forward. And I think Ms. Smith will bring some periodic updates to the board and such. So this is how this came about. Cheryl, is there anything else you'd like to add that I might have left off?
Not that I can think of, Mike.
Okay. Is the board willing to grant consent for this creation of the board? If I hear any no's, we will put the committee together and lay out a framework of how the work is going to proceed, and periodically bring back to the council or to the board where we're at. Is there any no's to the creation?
David Fleming votes no.
Okay. Any other no's? Well, we're going to have to take I just want to do a roll call vote then.
Sorry for the interruption, but I recall that Mr. Weir did want to speak.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Okay. Mr. Weir, you said you wanted to comment on item number 8.
Thank you. Just to summarize what I was going to say is I was hoping that you would move forward with the formation of this committee. Increasing communication is only helpful, not hurtful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Weir. I appreciate that. And the only thing else I'll say to the board, of course, Austin's a big city, and I've been following their budget process pretty closely in light of how they're going to supposedly defund the police department. And it was referenced in the paper several times, council members and mayor making suggestions of where cuts should be made on their message board. So I have to say Natasha was right and I was wrong, because I kind of still viewed that as potentially leading to action. But I know from experience, many times judges look to the legislative intent of the bill that created it. And I think, at least from the way the city of Austin is using it.
Well, we're going to try that, star 6, but I don't know what it's doing.
Okay.
Okay, star 6.
Is that Carl? This is Natasha. Is that you at 2980?
I'm trying to get through now.
Okay. Is that you, Carl, at the 2980?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, finally.
Okay. Sorry, Mike.
Go ahead, no. Go ahead, Carl.
Well, I was going to vote no on it, but I had to call the office again from my phone.
Okay. So you're okay. We're going to take a vote on this, even though we don't. I just want the board to understand. I'm trying to be open and transparent in accordance with our governance. I don't have to do it, but because of the number of discussions and the expressions of all of you, I felt that it needed to come back to the board and get your consent. So I will open it up for a motion to, again, create a message board for the Lost Pines Groundwater District. Issues that they'll be addressing is how do they think it will be utilized by the board? What's going to be the cost initially and ongoing? And again, the biggest thing is usage and cost, and I know that's a big issue. So I'll entertain a motion, and I will concede to the vote of the board.
Mike, this is Phil Cook. I so moved, but before you call a vote on it, could we have some discussion, please?
Oh, we will. Okay. Now that we're going to vote, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second from Cheryl.
Cheryl, okay. We have a motion and a second to the creation of a message board committee to look at, is it feasible and workable for the district to have a message board? I'll open it up to questions. And I'll say before I close is that I was just really impressed with what Cheryl has done to date. And I think she was getting to the point of really trying to answer the concerns that came up during our numerous discussions on this matter. So I'll leave it.
Mike, this is Cheryl. I'd like to make.
Go ahead.
This is Cheryl. I'd just like to say that the only thing that I recall from the last meeting, the objection was the lack of knowledge of the price. I did not hear any other discussion of other issues, and I would really like to know what the other issues are for the people that voted against it.
Well, Cheryl, one thing I had noted is that how much would it be utilized by the board or by the board? That did come. I can't remember if it was the first meeting or the second meeting, but the concern was if we implement this project, how often or regularly will the board take advantage of using the message board? And that might require interviewing.
Thank you.
That might require interviewing every one of the board members and getting their input. Okay. Anything else, Cheryl?
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I just did not recall. The main thing I remembered was the money concern.
Okay.
Mike, I'm sorry, Cheryl, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done.
She's done. Phil, go ahead.
This is Kay Rogers.
This is Phil Cook.
Phil, and then
go
Kay.
ahead, Kay. Okay, this is Phil Cook. I certainly understand that all the board members might not want to use this, and they're free not to use it. On the other hand, if they want to monitor what's going on with the conversations, that those of us who do want to use it, they can access that easily through the Lost Pines website. And again, it frustrates me that people vote no without any stated reason for voting no. The cost is going to be negligible on this. It's good communication. It's a way for the public to participate in our meetings. And if you just don't like it, to me, that's not enough reason to vote no on it and to prevent those of us who do want to use it from going forward with this. Thank you.
Carl Steinbach.
Oh, excuse me.
Mike, hey, Rod.
Kay Rogers was next, and then I'll get to you, Carl. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know enough of this message board to be an opponent or a proponent, and I would really like to hear from a committee so I could make up my mind in an intelligent way.
Okay. That's a good point. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Kay? Okay.
Well, the only thing that sort of concerned me expense-wise was that you were going to have your legal counsel look over everything before it got posted, and that seemed to me like that could run up some bills.
I think what Natasha meant is that they're going to have to periodically monitor it to see what's on the board, to ensure that we're staying in the parameters of the law that was created, allowing for a message board. Is that not correct, Natasha?
That's correct, Mike. I mean, we wouldn't be doing any pre-review of the post, but the main concern is that there wouldn't be any voting done on the message board. So we would just review it from time to time to make sure there weren't any votes or actions taken on the board.
Okay.
Those actions are prohibited by the statute.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anything else?
Carl Steinbach.
No.
Okay, Carl.
At the meeting last month, I asked for two things. How many other water districts have this deal and what the cost would be? And there was nothing in our packet in this meeting about that.
I agree.
Staff or lawyers, I wish they look into it.
No, because again, the Cheryl has started down this path, and if this is something that is desired by the board, I believe it would be very good for the board to evaluate this. And I do know that Cheryl has gotten in touch with some other water districts, but clearly the report back to the board would include how many other districts have it and how is it used and the cost. That, at least from my sitting and listening to it, cost was a very big issue. And I think before we spend a lot of money, I think Cheryl and her committee could come up with cost and answer that question for the board and for you, Carl.
So the means of answering your questions, Carl, would be to have a committee to look into this stuff in depth and come back to the board.
Also, but at last month's meeting, nothing was said about a committee.
No, that's right. And I take full responsibility for that. After the last meeting, Cheryl had contacted me or CC'd me on some information that she had gathered on this item, and I didn't feel comfortable with 2 or 3 people working on something that was an important issue to the board and you not being aware that this was ongoing because of your interest, which either way. I like to keep things structured. I'd like to keep the board informed, and I felt the more prudent approach was I put basically Cheryl's been on hold until we vote on this tonight, but I just was deeply concerned. 2 months down the road, Cheryl came in with a report, and then the questions, like, well, how did this happen? And again, out of respect for the board, I thought it should come back to the board, if nothing else, that you knew this was going on. And again, trying to get to the bottom of some very important issues. And we've talked about those tonight, and I believe that they will address that.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Sinang.
Yes, Mike.
I have some problems with this whole situation. You have the power, you have the authority to appoint this committee if that is what you want to do. Now, why does the board have to have this discussion as to whether or not we want a committee to look into something and then report back to us, and at that point in time decide whether or not we want to do it? That is your power. That's your call. I understand that you're wanting to be upfront and that you want to be transparent with the board, but that's what you hired on for, sir. I'm sorry. I think that you need to do your duty.
I couldn't agree with you more, but the last couple of committees that we have created did come before the board, and that's why I began researching, are we creating committees in accordance with our governance? And as I read all that, I fully understand it falls back on my shoulder. And if the board just wants the president to make up his mind and do what he wants to do, I will do that. Have no problem with it.
I don't think we have a choice of deciding whether or not you ought to appoint a committee or not. I think that is your decision.
I agree. It's very clear that it's my decision. Well, I think that in light of this discussion, and we still got a lot to cover tonight, I'm going to withdraw this item. I'm going to reflect upon it, and I will make a decision within the next week whether or not to create a committee. And if I so do, I will notify all the board that I have decided and who the members are. And
Thank you very much.
This item is being withdrawn, as well as item number 9, because again, it's up to me, and might be helpful to get some outside help on this if I decide to appoint, and I will take care of it and fulfill my responsibilities.
Thank you very much, sir.
You bet.
Mike, this is Natasha.
I think the same for number 10.
No, 8 was the committee and 9 was the appointments. 10 is natural resource. And
Right,
that's the same thing.
10,
What?
right. That's why I think they should both be.
Yes, I'm withdrawing item 10 under the same auspices of our governance policy, and I will get a little bit more. Jim briefly told me about this yesterday. I would like a little bit more information. But on this one, I will tell you right now, on 10, I will be appointing a committee because we do have to file a response. So with that being said, I'll withdraw 10 and 11, and we'll move down to item 12.
Mike, this is Natasha. Before you move on, I just wanted to note that you can establish and appoint as the president, but just as you recognize that the course of practice for the district had been to take these matters of creation to the board. But, we can follow, the strict letter of the law, and you can establish and appoint in this instance. I just want you to know what your authority is, to be clear on that.
I think the authority is very clear in the governance policy.
Right.
I think, and I think what has happened is over time, the board kind of drifted away from the stated policy, and we went through the board. But I think Mr. Semaine makes a compelling argument, and I feel that it's my responsibility, and if I don't want to carry out my responsibility, I need to resign. Okay?
We're not expecting
Please
that.
don't do that, Mike.
Matt and I are here to assist if you need anything, Mike.
You bet. Okay, item number 12. Consideration of the financial report for the period of July 1st through July 31st, 2020. Jim?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is Jim Totten. Financial report for the period ending of July 31st, 2020. The operating fund balance stood at $439,299.23. The tax pool fund balance stood at $924,924.06 for a grand total of $3,364,223.29. The operating fund balance is drifting a little bit higher than we normally carry it, so we'll look at transferring some of those funds over to tax pool to get that back into our normal operating range. As far as user fees collected to date, we're tracking where we would expect to be in terms of budgeted revenue. Fees collected to date are approximately $814,000 of the roughly $1.3 million that were projected in the budget. Expenses for the district are all tracking where we expect to be for this time of year. At this point in time, I don't have any real concerns about any budget line items aside from the ones that have been previously mentioned. We did have some extra costs associated with our website that'll need to be taken care of in a budget amendment at the end of the year. But other than that, legal and hydrogeology, which are our two big budget items, are both tracking right where we'd want them to be for this time of year. And like I said, I don't have any particular concerns aside from previously mentioned line items at this point in time. I'd be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Jim, I don't have a question. I'd just like to elaborate just a little bit on what you've just said.
Yes.
As far as revenue is concerned, to date, we are 62.6% of our revenue collected. And if we were going month by month, we should be at 58%. So we're ahead of our revenue collections for the year. For our expenditures, we're at 28.6. So I think you've done an excellent job of holding our expenditures in line. We have 5 months left, and I will have to defer to you regarding any unexpected expenses that might come in. But other than to say to the board, if we continue the trend that we see in this report, we will have a very good year and add some additional money to our capital fund if we decide to go forth with the building of the office, which is underway, new office. The only thing I'd like to comment, Jim, and I'll be glad to help you out, but I really think we need to sit down with the auditor and discuss creating a capital fund so you can track the expenditures associated with a capital project such as a new district office because of the amount of money that's going to have to be spent.
Mr. President, Peggy and I have had those discussions with our auditor. They discussed appropriate line items that we can add to the budget to help track those expenses. But we can follow up and get more in depth with that with you and the auditor as we go forward.
I just don't want to get a letter of comment because we didn't. There's probably 2 or 3 ways we can set it up. Due to the size of the budget, they're probably just going to add 9,000 and call that your capital fund, and then you can track it through there. But it makes it a little bit harder if somebody says, well, how much did you spend? And it's going to be, you can figure that out pretty quick if you want to do it as a line item. But I'll get in touch with you, and if that's what they want to do, I'm good with it. And it'll also help the board as we go forward. If they have a question, well, how are expenditures? Have we had any change orders? Are we in line with the contractor? It'll make it easier for you to give that report to the board.
Literally my first rodeo, so any guidance is helpful.
I will. I've had to set up numerous capital accounts in my career, so be more than glad to help you. But this was a good financial report, Jim. And the numbers look excellent. So I commend you and staff on that. Is there anyone else that has a question regarding the financials? If not, if there is no objection to accepting the financial report for the period of July 1st through July 31st, 2020, I will consider the item approved. Any no's? It's approved.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board.
Okay. Jim, it's your general manager's report.
Mr. President, members of the board, for the reporting period of July 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2020, the district processed 20 new Form 100s, so that's new domestic and irrigation wells. It's kind of a standout month. All of those were actually domestic wells split between Lee and Bastrop County. There were no new irrigation wells put in. There were no pre-existing wells registered with the district on its Form 300s. So it's a busy month for drillers and a quiet month for registering older wells. During the reporting period, the Aqua Labs has begun reaccepting water samples. So I've taken, I believe, 3 water samples to Aqua and another 3 samples that went up to Texas A&M for analysis, and gauged, I believe, 4 wells during the reporting period as well. So in spite of the heat, starting to try and get back out and get some of those things taken care of and kind of clear the backlog that built up while we were locked down.
Okay.
We do have a pending permit coming from the coming into the district. We had to send it back already once because it was incomplete. I suspect we'll get the completed application back in end of this week or early next week. And that's a permit for 2 wells in the Hooper, located in Lee County for Manville Water Supply Corporation. They're seeking approximately 1,100 acre-feet of water per year. Once they get us that completed application, we'll process it through, and if everything's in order, it may be declared administratively complete in the next 45 to 60 days, and we'll schedule it for a hearing after that. So probably sometime in the October timeframe, we'll be bringing that permit to you.
Okay.
I'm starting to hear rumors there may be a couple other permits brewing out there, but at this point, I don't have anything definite. But we do know that we will have that Manville permit coming sometime this fall for y'all to consider. With regard to upcoming meetings, we have GMA 12, which Andy said it was September 10th. I have it on my calendar for September 11th, but we will post that agenda on the website. I believe it is September 11th at 10 a.m. It'll be a virtual meeting again, conducted through Post Oak Savannah's services. And additionally, there will be a virtual meeting of Region K, which is scheduled for the 15th of September at 10 a.m. Region K is pushing through the final stages of approving the 2020 state water plan. If they don't do the final approval in September, then they'll do the final approval in October. It just depends on how fast the consultants can finish off the last couple of chapters. So those are the two upcoming meetings we have currently. And at this point in time, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Only question I have is I would like to sit in, it's going to be virtual, I saw by your note. Once you get the date, just let me know, because I would like to sit in on the next GMA 12 meeting, just for educate, because I'm sure you're going to do it over at the offices.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I'll either be at the office or at home. It just depends on where we're at in the rotation. But yes, sir.
Okay.
If you want, if any board members that want to come in, and we could set up laptops here at the office for a few board members and conduct it that way.
Or if you could give me the information, I can just set it up here at my desk.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the agenda will be posted with all that information, but we'll send it out to the board members so that y'all can just click on the link and get to the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Anybody else have any questions of Jim? If not, thank you, Jim. And we'll move on the agenda. Next item. We do have some legislative matters, but I will be taking care of that with the creation of that committee. I have been in discussions with Mr. Ellis, but he has not brought anything up regarding any legislative issues that we should be paying attention to from the board. So if not, I'll move on to 15. Consideration of conference meetings and educational opportunities board members desire to attend. I'm not aware of any educational coming up. Is there anything from TAG, Jim, that's coming up? Or
so TAG has its 3-day conference coming up at the start of September. We have Mr. Cook already registered for 3 days, and we do have a second registration that we can use. When they converted it over to virtual, they gave us the option of either a partial refund or getting a secondary registration. So
if someone was to do that.
Mr. President, it's Kay Rogers, I'd like to.
I think that would be a very appropriate use of that second registration. So we can send Mr. Cook and Kay Rogers, then they can attend the TAG conference virtually.
Okay. Calendar of events. Other than our next meeting, which will be September 16th, I'm not aware of anything else other than the GMA meeting coming up that you've referenced earlier, Jim. Is there anything else coming up?
With the exception of the items that we're discussing here towards the end of the meeting, no, sir, that's GMA 12 and Region K are the only items.
Okay. Then we will move to item 17. We will not be going into executive session on 17. The action that's required is to us to agree on a meeting date with the applicants and the other parties. And I just, in discussing this with Greg, felt we could handle setting a meeting date and didn't need to be guided to make it. I hope some of you got the memo I got earlier in the week from Greg. Greg did email me late this afternoon, and the group and has agreed. And when he says group, I'm assuming that's all the parties involved. That they have narrowed it down to 4 dates. You might want to write these down. September 9th, September 10th, October 7th, and October 8th.
Mike, sorry to interrupt. This is Natasha. We got an email late today that one of the parties will not be available on September 10th. So I would ask you to take that date out.
Okay, thank you, because I didn't get that one. So,
yes.
All right, we're down to 3 dates then. The 9th, the 7th, or the 8th. There's no question we need to keep the ball rolling now, since SOA has completed the work that they are required to complete on this. But there's a lot of things that we've got to take into consideration in setting the meeting. And I would say that in this time frame, I don't see any of the requirements from COVID-19 being reduced. So there's going to have to be a coordination from a technology standpoint to put this together. Jim has made a good suggestion, and at least I think it should be looked at. And he said if, we could get the convention center, we could put the public out in the main part, and the one wing can be opened all the way up, and the parties can then come in and make whatever comments they want to make to the board, and that will be videotaped out to the public. So if somebody has questions, which I'm sure we're going to get after the presentations, it might be a little bit more orderly to handle it that way. I don't know if we can, but I thought it was a great idea from Jim, and I think we ought to at least look at that to see if that's possible. So I don't think we can get that done, and Jim, you chime in here, by September 9th. So to me, I think it's either October 7th or October 8th. That's just my thoughts.
Mr. President Talbot, my actual recommendation was just to try and get the board into one general area and let's continue to handle the public and all the other interactions virtually. I think packing that many people into the conference center this early in the year is asking a bit much.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think realistically for any time, looking at September timeframe, we're going to have to conduct a meeting like this. I don't know that we can get anything else set up. Conceivably, we might be able to find a place in Giddings where some of the Lee County board members can meet and have better internet service and have a more reliable connection that way, while still hosting some board members here at the office. Right. But I think anything beyond that in the next month or two, I don't know that we can set up anything.
Yeah, because there's a lot of factors that we have to take into account, social distancing, mask, and all that stuff. And we would probably be required to take the temperature of everybody that came into the meeting, and we should be more focused on the meeting. So, Jim, we got to get with the other parties and work out how we're going to coordinate this virtually. If that can be done in a day, that's fine. But I don't want to rush into this and then leave something out that, because it's about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, that we would be calling. If you think we can get everything done, then if the board's open to it, September 9th is fine with me. I was more concerned about the logistics and getting that worked out and fine-tuned, because I just don't want to have any technology issues pop up where we're getting calls, we can't hear you, you're breaking out, and possibly even doing a test run. It wouldn't require all of it, but at least one party from all of it could go to wherever they're going to go and make sure we have just a test that they're connected right and everything's working before we bring everybody in.
And to that end, I think from a technology standpoint, I think we can make this work, especially if we take into account Mr. Weir's suggestion about using written comments. The district does have a dedicated email address that we use for accepting written comments when we're in a written comment period. So we can very easily, reopen that email account and allow people to send in written comments that way. My biggest concern from a technology standpoint is just making sure that all the directors are in a place where they have a sufficient signal to participate. So if we need to get, set up a few more computers here at the office and bring people in here, or find a place in Lee County where we can set some directors up there that need a more solid internet connection, that would be my biggest concern. But other than that, I think that's worked out relatively well.
Mike, I've got a couple of points to add. So the parties did have a meeting last week, and we talked about, the volume of evidence and the complexities of the issues. And we anticipate that we're going to need 2 days, at least 2 days to do this. And so we would treat this basically as a bifurcated hearing. You'd have, one leg, let's say we set it September 9th, and then you have some time for the parties to prepare for that second day and maybe October 7th or 8th. But that's just something that the parties had already discussed. And so we'd ask the board tonight to set 2 dates for this hearing. And then it was contemplated to be virtual, because of the circumstance. And tonight's kind of a test run, and there's some improvements that can be made for sure. But one thing we do have to remember is that the board counsel, Greg Ellis, has advised us that we need to set at least the first night, the first hearing date, we need to set it today, because we have to do it within 30 days after the proposal for decision came out, and that was July 20th. So just a couple of points that the board needs to be aware of in setting this hearing.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to turn it over to the attorneys and whomever. More information continues to come out that I wasn't apprised of, and I certainly understand that it may take 2 days. And so, you and Jim have been more connected than I have with this process. The issue of having 2 days was not raised to me. And so this is kind of new to me tonight. So I think you and Jim need to talk to the board and see what works going to work best. Because apparently I don't have a full loaf of bread, so.
Well, tonight we would need you to at least set the first hearing, but board counsel Greg Ellis has indicated to the parties that he agrees that 2 days would be necessary. And the thing about final hearings is that they can be continued. So if you just set one day, the first day tonight, we can set the next day before the close of that first hearing if we need it. And I suspect we will need it.
Well, then, really, we don't have much choice if we're going to take that approach. It's basically the 7th and the 8th. I mean, because one party's not going to make it on the 10th, so it doesn't make sense. Or we could do it September 9th and October 7th, but that's a 30-day gap. And I would would like to get this part done because it's really important to me that the board fully understands all the issues that they are going to have to consider so that we can make the best decision. Just on the little crumbs that have been dropped on my table, I've been doing some research. I've actually made a request through SOA because there are some documents I don't have, and I feel uncomfortable going into a meeting on some things I haven't read. And SOA responded back to me this afternoon, but I haven't had a chance to get with them. So it's either, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I'm just going to throw October 7th out. And if y'all want to change it, that's fine with me, but we shouldn't have to spend all night to set a date.
And just one point, President Talbot. Every contested case that we've had up to this point in time has been continued. The final hearing has been continued over a span of a couple of months. That was the case in NDOP, and I believe that was also the case in Bastrop. So this isn't a deviation from the district's previous experiences in terms of conducting the final hearing in a single night. But
I understand that, Jim. What I'm concerned about is we have more protestants than we've had previously.
Yes, sir.
There's much more items that are going to be before the board. And at least from my perspective, and the board may have a different perspective, I think the sooner we can get through all the materials that they are going to present to us, we're not going to be able to make a decision that night, but at least we can begin looking at what decisions we have to make, and we may want to have a hydrologist come in and explain the differences of the various models that were submitted to SOA. So I understand the concept. We can keep going. I'm just trying to get all the information before us, so that gives us a little bit more additional time to study this matter. And why I guess I'm putting such emphasis on it, it seems like every contested case hearing that we've had, the comment I hear from the public is, well, y'all just let the attorney guide you to what decision they wanted. And I think it's important, and I'm going to try to do my very best to fully understand it so that I can ask questions to demonstrate to the public, no, we're not being guided by anyone. We're being guided by the decisions that we have to make for the residents of Bastrop and Lee County.
And Mike, could I just add to that? So Greg Ellis, I mean, he will provide more details and also the materials that's necessary for the board. So he's the board's counsel because I represent.
I've been asking for it, Natasha, and all I've gotten so far is the memo that was sent out to the board tonight.
Well, so we'll get you what you need, but I understand that, you know, we're going to need some time to prepare for these multiple days. And so part of that, if you have the hearing on what would be my recommendation, the first day would be September 9th, then that gives the board time to digest what they heard on September 9th. And then there'll be another day, maybe October 7th. My recommendation would be October 7th for that second day. And so that gives the board all that time, 30 days, which isn't really contrary to what we've done before, to continue looking at those materials. So after the close of the final hearing, the board would take final action 60 days later. So that amount of time gives the board time to digest everything that they've heard at the final hearing. So my recommendation would be September 9th and also October 7th.
The only thing I got to make the board aware of is that all the people involved are saying now these 3 dates are the only dates that work that we can come together to address the board. If we set a date different than what's before us now, it has the potential of spinning this, and we'll have to delay it again. So to me, it either has to be September 9th and 7th as Natasha outlined, or September 8th, September 7th and 8th, because if not, it's probably going to put us back to square one, and I'll probably may have to call a special meeting to get a date set. So I'll just say I concur with Natasha's recommendation.
If we could have a motion and second on the dates or the recommendation, then we can move forward. And Greg will be able to provide more details on the process. I mean, we've got to be careful not to get into any of the merits as we're parties. So all of that information will come from Greg.
Tasha, Mike, Samang,
Yes.
I move we do on September 9th.
Would you add to that motion a
This is
second?
Larry Shoddy. I'll second that.
Would you consider?
Yes, this is Larry Shoddy. I'll second that.
I heard that. I was just wondering, would you consider amending it to 9th and October 7th if we have to hold that second meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I think on September 9th, if you don't get through, I think that the parties can continue, the participants can continue and set a date for a follow-up. But if it needs to be on October 7th, it's fine with me.
Well, we'll just keep that date open and and I'll have Greg convey that back to him. But in light of just getting this pushed out, we're just going to agree to 9th and get it kicked off and then see what happens. And so is there anyone opposed to September 9th?
Mr. President, is this item number 18 on the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay, understandable. I think if you're a party to this, I think, and I appreciate you bringing that up, David. I had it on my sticky note. I guess I didn't write it well enough to read it. But I believe Mr. Cook and Ms. Rogers both are going to have to recuse themselves from voting on this. Is that not correct, Natasha?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go down, since we've got some people can't vote, I'm going to run down. David Fleming.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I don't think we have a second yet.
Yes, you do. Larry Shoddy seconded it.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Carl.
I'm for it.
Okay. Billy, did you ever get in? Okay, but I'm going to just put a yes down by him. Mr. Cook?
Yes, sir.
Of course, Larry made the second. Mike made the motion. Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then we will convey back tomorrow that the kickoff meeting date will be September 9th, and we'll be coordinating getting this out. What the issue is here, until we hold the meeting, Jim can't really participate in getting things together for the board. I'm having to do that for you, and Jim has graciously allowed one of his staff members to help me because we're going to start getting a lot of stuff in. So just wanted you to be aware of that. So it is September 9th. That's a funny day because that's the day I went into the Air Force. All right. I entertain a motion to adjourn. If not hearing no,
So moved.
we're adjourned.